Welcome back to the baseline here on Baseline Banter. Chris Smith, Travis Wilson, and Colton Wilson here. We're back for episode 2, 1. I don't know what we're calling it. Before we get started, though, I wanted to give a shout out to Bound, our presenting sponsor. Bound, Wisconsin. That's going to be the number one place you go this year for stats, streaming links, content, all your girls and basketball needs. We've got it there at Bound, Wisconsin. Guys, it was Thanksgiving. Mother Nature already played a role early in the season. She basically looked at Saturday's slate, said, hey, I know you have all these nice tournaments that you want to play. I'm not going to let it happen.
Yeah, it wasn't any fun. I can tell you that. Preparing for an entire game and having multiple practices doing so, and then not being able to play was a big bummer. I know for myself, being super disappointed. Our guys were definitely disappointed that our game got canceled on Saturday. But I understand, obviously, when a storm of that nature is supposed to pop up, probably best to make sure we're keeping everybody safe.
You know, I think it was worse that it happened on this weekend on a weekend where there's a lot of tournaments than if it would have happened on a Tuesday night. Because those Tuesday night games, even though there's more games on a Tuesday or a Thursday or Friday, they're one-off games that are easier to reschedule as opposed to some of those tournaments that are 10, 12 games. I mean, the Brookfield Central girls tournament, the Kettle Moraine girls tournament, those are huge events with outstanding teams. I mean, you look at the Kettle Moraine Saturday schedule, there were 5 or 6 games, especially late in the day, that were going to be some of the best games in the entire year. And very unfortunate to see those get pushed. They're for some of those tournaments, they are essentially trying to just push the entire event to a different date. Some of those don't work out. There's some of them that they'll have to just kind of do as one-offs, and they're working out their own thing of whether they're going to be able to schedule it on a different day, just on a one-by-one basis. And it's not going to be an event, and it's not going to be all the games in one place. But almost worse to have it happen on a holiday tournament weekend. Yeah,
agreed. Coach, somehow Coach Ladrin and is it 14 teams, 7 games from the Beaver Dam
like
sign?
That. Yeah.
Somehow all of you guys are not playing on a single date in the future, and the whole event is getting moved. That's wild.
It is wild. When Tim texted me that saying, hey, no one plays on February 14th, so we're just going to move the Slam at the Dam to that date. I was like, how is that possible? But it's great because, like Travis said, man, some very marquee matchups in that event, and you again get to see all those games in one day being played, which I think is something to be said for the events now that have to break up and just kind of play them whenever they're available.
Did Tim consult his wife before he made that decision to move the entire event, a 7-game all-day event, to Valentine's Day? That's what I really want to know.
I can tell you with certainty that Trisha had zero problem with it. She is one of one when it comes to that type of thing. I know for a fact when I told my wife that it was going to be on February 14th, she gave me the look, and I was like, hey, I didn't do it.
Did you tell her? Did you tell her to give Tim a call? Just be like, hey, this is not me.
No, I just when you get the look from your wife, you maybe you don't know this yet, Colton, but you kind of just need to take it and move about your business.
Yeah, we're early in the process. I think we're just gonna hop right into it. We have a pretty big episode. We have a interview with Coach Dave Lepisto of the Kimberly girls basketball program coming up. And then after that, we're going to get into a little bit of preview. But let's just hop into the review. Girls week 2, boys week 1. Trav, let's start with some highlights. What did you see in week 2 of the girls basketball season?
Yeah, a lot of the interesting results came from some of those games that we're able to get in on Friday at the kind of those showcase type events in Brookfield and Kettle Moraine especially. Again, we got a lot of good games pushed, but there were some really good games. Oostburg is a team that obviously has been one of the best girls programs in the state under Coach Isaiah Ketterhagen, and he's got a couple of his girls still there. An outstanding game that they had against Notre Dame at Brookfield Oostburg sophomore Soraya Benton made a free throw with 0.2 seconds left to give Oostburg a 43-42 win. And it's really an exceptional start for Oostburg. They've beaten Appleton East, Winneconne, Notre Dame already. Notre Dame. They were supposed to play. Who were they supposed to play? There was another really good game they were supposed to have the following day on Saturday that ended up getting canceled. I can't remember now. I'll look it up. But they also have on their non-conference schedule. I mean, we talk about scheduling anybody and challenging yourself. They have games coming up against Pewaukee, Whitefish Bay, Beaver Dam, Wisconsin Lutheran, Arrowhead. They were supposed to play Pewaukee at the Brookfield event on that Saturday that got postponed. So they're really challenging themselves, which is nothing new for them. In the same event at Brookfield, Dominicans Brooklyn Love made a game-winning three-pointer at the buzzer to lift them to a win over a very good Milton team, 56-55. Milton was up by 2 with, I think it was 5.6 seconds left. Dominican had to go the length of the court. Brooklyn drove it down and ended up getting a really good look at the top of the key to knock that down for a game winner. Earlier in the week, Somerset's Grace Brathwaite had 28 rebounds and 17 points in a 1-point win over New Richmond. Kind of a rivalry game there between those two programs. Hartford, Coach Vinny there at Hartford had a great win on Friday against Edgewood. They beat Edgewood in a really good game. They lost earlier in the week to Wisconsin Lutheran, but a really good showing for Hartford in a really good showing for a couple of their individual players. Bella Klages had 28 points against Wisco, 34 against Edgewood. Lauren Voss, who's a Butler sophomore, Butler softball commit, had 21 rebounds in those two games. 17 of them were offensive rebounds. So a really good showing by the Orioles. And again, they play a really good schedule too. They were supposed to play Notre Dame on Saturday. St. Mary Catholic Junior Autumn Crow had 30 points, 23 rebounds against Wrightstown.
Wow.
And Ella Franek from Boston broke a 35-year-old school record in rebounds. She went over 600 in her career as they had a win over Berlin. So those are some of the notable games and performances from the most recent week in girls basketball. Of course, cut short with the weather on Saturday, and obviously no games on Thursday. So, but overall, a really good week for games that did get in.
The monster games.
30 and 23. Holy cow. That's a game. Chris, I know you were supposed to have that game on Saturday. You had your scrimmage earlier in the week. Did you get to follow along? Any news on some of the big games from earlier this weekend?
Yeah, Wisco picked up a big win over Pike, 68-65 behind 33 points from Zenz. I mean, that's nothing that people don't expect, right? That he's putting out 30-plus points in a game.
That Pike team is loaded. They got three kids that were maybe 4-stars when I looked, and that's a big early season win.
Once again, it says something about just the state of Wisconsin and where we're at with basketball. It's incredible on the boys and the girls side of things. Yeah. Some other games here. Brook East over Neenah, 70-46 behind 26-11 from TJ Platts. They had a freshman, Max McMullen, added 14-5 and 6. West Ellis Central over Nicolay, 71-64. Super athletic game. If you were to look at some of those highlights, there were some definite highlight reel type plays in that game. Really up-tempo game. Guys really got up and down the floor there. Moving forward to Palmyra Eagle, Ryan Brodzik, sorry if I got the name wrong, with the lone buzzer beater of the week in 58-55 win over Catholic Central. Sam Fate had 38 and 15 for Catholic Central, which is a monster game as well. Aiden Kelleher of Southwestern, 23 points in a 94-59 win over Argyle to surpass 1,000 points, which is always a great milestone in high school hoops. Someone to get over 1,000 points means you probably had a pretty damn good career, or are having one, right? Jake Bresky from Lamira had that back injury, and he's back now. Hit 16, 9, and 4 in an 18-point win over Horicon. Michael Merlo from Random Lake, freshman, 36 points, but couldn't quite get it done against New Holstein. And then last but not least, we have Dominic Baxter of Peshigo, 28 and 10 on Saturday in a 70-41 win over Krivitz to surpass 1,500 career points. So congrats to those guys. Passing those career milestones. I think that's sometimes not talked about enough. But some really great games over the weekend, and a nice way to start it. Thankful for those games, considering like the weekend getting cut short. So it was a good weekend. Good
Coach,
week.
you touched on those milestones. That's something that last year I tracked. I mean, I tracked 1,000-point scores, 1,500-point scores, everything last year, and it's something that I plan to do again this year. It's finding all that information. One is hard right now. Thankfully, I have a plethora of spreadsheets that have information from the last couple years that I'm tracking all that. And what we're going to do on Bound and at Bound Wisconsin this year is we're going to have just a living article where we're going to have those milestones, records broken, everything just kind of there available. So coaches, players, moms and dads, like you get to see that success that is happening. I don't remember the exact number, but it was well over 120, 150 that hit the 1,000-point mark just last year, right? So I think a lot. It's probably on pace to hit about that again, and that's something that we're going to do a good job of tracking at Bound. Coaches, you hear this. Parents, you hear this. Athletes, you hear this. If something is coming up, DM us, email us, let us know so we can make sure to shed light on those accomplishments. I think with that, that's our week, our look back. Obviously, a lot of big games didn't happen. I don't remember Mother Nature having this kind of an effect on a Thanksgiving weekend. What hit you guys? You remember anything this early in the season that had just been? Usually, you get it's going to be 10 inches and ends up 2.
Well, the other thing is it was all over the state, right? I mean, it was more snow in southern Wisconsin, but a lot of times on a night there'll be a band that'll go through and it'll affect the northern teams or the southern teams, but to affect the entire state essentially is relatively rare as well.
Yeah, I mean it almost covered most of the Midwest in reality. So it was a very large storm, and it was a very steady storm. I wouldn't say that there was anything like very nasty about it, but like the accumulation after a while ended up being probably a pretty good call by everybody across the state of Wisconsin to kind of just shut it down. I mean, we are dealing with kids in the end, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I don't know Vinny, how much did you get over there in Hartford? How much snow?
He just called you Vinny, by the way.
Oh my man, gosh, Chris. I should just go back to calling you Coach.
Yeah, I'm going to have to make sure that I let Vinny know that he's as good looking as I am when I talk to him. No, we got somewhere around 10 inches, and my kids thoroughly enjoyed it the entire day on Saturday. And it was really nice for me. On the flip side of things, it was really nice for me to be able to get outside with them and play in the snow with them for a little bit. I think we had an entire all 5 of us for about an hour. We're outside playing in the snow, which was really fun.
I will say, snow removal, shoveling, is one of the more humbling things that happens when you get older. I mean, I'm shoveling and I'm halfway through the driveway and my back is aching. I'm tired. I'm like, I need to scrimmage a little bit more in these practices this upcoming week to feel better about myself.
What you need to do is become an adult and get a snowblower.
Correct. Yeah, it's been on the to-do list for the spring when they're on sale. And then I just had to plan a wedding right after basketball season last year. It was a little busy.
Your driveway is about 10 feet long and you have no sidewalk, so it's really not that hard.
Yeah, tell that to my back. All right, we had our review. We are going to now hop into that interview with Coach Lepisto. You'll see us back here dressed in the same garb, following it with a little bit of preview and some more talking points about basketball. All right, we are here with our first guest on the baseline. Don't know if we could have gotten one bigger. We got the defending Division I state champion in the state of Wisconsin in girls basketball, Coach Dave Lepisto from Kimberly. Coach, thank you for taking the time out of your night, Sunday night. Been a bit of a snowy, Mother Nature-y kind of weekend, but thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me. I always love to talk basketball, and always enjoy listening. And yeah, Sunday was disappointing to have a little snow issues. Their games canceled Saturday, but hopefully we could get it. And we were able to reschedule our game, so I was really happy with that.
Yeah, let's hop right into this. You've coached on the scene for going on over 30 years.
Yeah. I mean, I started coaching in lacrosse back when I was at UWL. Before I even graduated, we were coaching at Lacrosse Central on the girls' side, and had some really good success there. Then got a teaching job in Green Bay and started coaching in Green Bay at Green Bay Preble with boys with Mike Wittig. That's 30 years ago, I guess, 28. And then moved over to the girls' side and coached there for 4 or 5 years for Deanne Lehman. And then decided to take a few years off, kind of disillusioned with the game, as every coach goes through. You get to a certain point where it's like, okay, what are we doing here? I had young kids at the time. But then lived in Kimberly that whole while, and one day when my daughter came home when she was in 3rd grade, she asked if I would coach again. And so I coached 3rd grade, 4th grade girls, and made me rethink a lot of things. I went back to, I'm an elementary phy ed teacher, so it was great that I started to actually coach that way, getting kids to go through decisions and self-organize and trying to get kids to be able to do footwork and everything when you're trying to do it with 3rd grade girls who have never played. All of the ways that I've been taught probably wasn't going to work. So it was like, okay, let's adapt and adjust to this and get back to, all right, let's figure out how to really teach kids how to play. And then was able to just parlay that into Troy Cullen asked me one year, they'd say, hey, you want to, I told him I was ready to get back in. And Troy's a great friend of mine. And we, that was in 2013. And then I was his assistant until this will be my 4th year as a head coach. So we had great success. Couldn't quite knock that door down. Made it to state a couple times, and but just couldn't get the win at state. And then last year, or when I started 3 years ago, we somehow made a sectional final. And then the next year we had some influx of some really good young kids and started that next step. And lost to Hartford, to Vinny. 2 years ago, I guess it was, and last year just the kids really came together and really sacrificed for each other and made it through a tough sectional, and it ended up, we reached an outcome goal. Not everybody gets to do that, and it's hard to do, but it was a great journey along the way, and that's where we're at now. And now we're trying to, success needs a little closure, so it was good. All of that's done. We look back at it fondly, but this team is different, but wants to create its own memories. And we're 2 games in, and we got a long way to go, but I like where we're at in the process.
Yeah, you mentioned how you're 2 games in. You've played a really good Brookfield East team in your first non-con game. You had Kakana open up a non-con or your conference slate in the FVA. And then this past yesterday, you're scheduled to play a really, really good Tosa East team, Division II defending state champion. What goes into the thought process when scheduling those, not just really good non-con late teams, but those really good non-con games, especially early in the season?
Yeah, I schedule hard. I mean, this year we always start with Brookfield East. Tyler Saxon's former player of mine at Preble. Had him a couple of years, and then he runs such a great zone, that Merrimack zone. So it's like we want we start with him always, and like I would tell him, I said, I'm always going to play you and love playing you, but it's like going to get root canals. It's hard to go against that first game. And we like to challenge ourselves. It challenges our kids. They're so well coached. That zone is so different than what we see throughout the year. But the great part is I always like to start difficult. So any subsequent zone, even though if it's going to be good, it's probably not going to be as challenging as that first one. Mainly because of time of year, practice time, but then also the way they run it. And that we want to challenge. Our FVA schedule is always very hard, but we also like to really challenge ourselves and play the best teams in the state. This year we wanted Tosa East to have an opportunity to play them because of their style of play. We're playing Arrowhead, we play in Hartford, we played De Pere, and then who else? We have one more in there somewhere. Pewaukee. We always play Pewaukee. So it's very difficult. I mean, but that's what we want, and that's how we challenge our kids, and that's what they want to do too.
Yeah, Coach, when you talk about opening up with a team like Brook East who plays a very specific type defense, what do you guys do as far as just understanding like, hey, this is like a one-time thing? And you talked a little bit about that, like, yeah, it's going to be the most challenging maybe defense because of the uniqueness of it for the season, but you're only going to see it once, and how do you get the girls completely prepared for that and then be able to just flip the switch and continue to move on from there?
The great part is, by design, since we're conceptually taught offensively, regardless of what we're playing against, the concepts basically stay the same. And the kids, that's why I really like doing it hard. So they see it's against a hard zone, but yet the concepts are basically the same when we're playing against man. Now, there are little differences that they have to learn in through their decision making. But the goal is to be able to teach them the conceptual way to be able to attack space and then make space, and be able to do it both against man and zone in a way that they don't have to overthink that we're in two separate offenses, because we're not. And so that really helps us. It kind of lays that groundwork. But it's to get kids to be able to understand what we're playing against on the fly takes a lot of work, and that early in the year, it's definitely a work in progress.
Coach, I'm curious. I always am interested to get feedback from people in different situations. And you're in a conference of 10 teams where you only have to find 6 non-conference games. And there's other conferences out there that are 8 teams or 7 or even 6 teams, and they've got to find a whole lot of non-conference games. Which way would you prefer it? Do you like a larger conference schedule and fewer non-con games you got to try to find, or what is your take on that?
I like as an FVA purist, for lack of a word, I love having where we're playing everybody 2 times. And so having those 18 conference games, does make it a little bit easier to have to find non-cons. Where it is, I can't imagine trying to find 12 non-conference games for us. That would
it's
give us.
It's not very fun, I can tell you that.
No, yeah, I mean, I believe it, and then to try to find teams that you want to be able to challenge yourself without a lot of travel and things like that. We're willing to travel anywhere, but it's a little bit easier when you're doing it, 3 times with non-coms. If we have 3 on the road, 3 at home. But yes, I like that's the way we have it set right now. I mean, I could take the ideal would be, you have that ability to have a true conference champion and then be able to still challenge yourself with the non-conference schedule the way we have. So I would definitely go on that side. Because like Chris, I know you guys now have to, Vinny was telling me too, you got to find so many. And that's hard to do. And, and then to try to get everybody, when everybody else is looking for that many, it makes it difficult.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said too about, where you're at, right? Location wise, because,
yes,
for someone like us, for Hartford, like regardless of where we schedule, I mean, we're going to have to travel somewhere, probably outside of 40 minutes. And just to have 12 non-cons is very challenging. So, I mean, but even, you get to that 7, or, you get to that 8 range, that's really tough too. Yeah. I mean, 6 seemed really easy there for a while, but that's no longer the case.
Yes.
Hey,
I mean, Yeah.
I'm sure your ADs love you guys compared to what we do down in the SWC. We got 10 conference games and
Yeah.
14 non-cons we get to schedule, and our AD
Yeah, it's wild.
it's tough.
That is crazy to me. And I get it. I mean, everybody's situation is a little bit different. I'm thankful that our situation is what we have. And again, our travel is, we don't have to go too far. It's like we go down Pewaukee and Arrowhead and everything, but that's where we want to try to challenge ourselves too. But with the change of the sectional again, we'll try to schedule some on the other side so we can get some sectional teams back on. Like we'll try to look to get Spash at some point and things like that. But we always flip-flop those every 5 years, but we never know for sure if we're going to flip-flop. So it's like we have schedules set and then we end up switching a sectional.
Right.
But it's okay.
I don't want to make it sound like I was complaining, by the way, about having to travel 45 minutes or longer, because we know all the northern
Yes.
spots up in Wisconsin have to travel 2+ hours for a league game. So
Yeah,
there's that to think about.
Absolutely.
Coach, we talked a bit about your season, kind of your history and kind of what you got going ahead this year. I kind of want to go back. Coach Smith had brought this up in our pre-talks. You got to speak at the WBCA clinic this past year. If you could do us a favor, just kind of go over that process, what you enjoyed about it. I think a lot of coaches were there for your session. I think what you presented was amazing. So yeah, just if you could talk us through that.
Thank you. I really like it. I share just about everything. And to me, it is part of our jobs as coaches should be to share and try to help. And not saying what I do is the world's greatest thing or the only way to do it, but I love to share the stuff that we do. A, it helps our kids. B, it helps me focus on what we're actually doing is being successful. And when I go through these different clinics, and I've done a ton online, and this was the first that I got to do in front of all of the great state coaches. You have to make sure that you are looking at what you are doing because it's such a short period of time. 45 minutes is not a long time to put out what you're doing conceptually, offensively. But it was like, okay, it makes you, I say, adapt and adjust a lot. And edit, get it down to, okay, these are the 3 main things that we're looking to do. How we arrive in space with transition, what we're looking to do to create space. And there's a ton of other things that we do. But it was great to be able to speak in front of that group because I really like the format of being on the court. And we had some great kids who were, I can't even remember where they were from. It might have been Briggs or Stratton. I can't remember. But they did a great job. And some coaches had some great questions. And I've had a couple people contact me out after it, and made some nice connections. And that's why I love doing it, is to be able to create connection with other coaches. Because I learn all the time too. And that's my goal, is to be intellectually curious and try to take from other people as well and fit it into what we're doing. It was a great process. I asked a bunch of coaching friends, okay, if you got stuck listening to me, what would you want to hear? And a lot of it was, conceptual offense and playing through, because we still play inside out, so how we use that. And so it was good. And then creating those conversations to make me have to edit down and think, okay, what do I want to share in this type of setting?
By the way, it's Bryant and Stratton College. I've made the mistake a number of times.
Briggs and Stratton?
Listing them as Briggs and Stratton and their
Yes.
AD and SID.
They should be the mowers. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Coach, you and I had a great conversation a couple weeks ago about participation numbers in girls basketball, and we want to give that its due in a different setting. But I do want to touch on something that is maybe related, but we see a growing gap between the top teams, the really good teams in girls basketball, and the teams that are even a step below, even average teams are obviously below average. That gap seems to be much larger than it used to be, much larger than you see in boys basketball. And I'm wondering if you have some insider thoughts on why that is. Why is there a bigger gap and a growing gap between the top teams and everybody else?
I think, there's a ton of possible reasons, but one of the reasons is opportunity. And certain kids, we've just looking at my experience of our youth group and the kids, what they get and the coaching that they get at that time. Through from third grade, well, we start them kindergarten, first grade on Saturday morning stuff. I start them with some fun things, as an elementary FIA teacher. But they have great opportunity to get skilled. And then at some point, though, the kids really gravitate towards the game. They're working on their own. And nowadays, unfortunately, since we can't work with the kids in open gyms, they're going to some trainers. And then you get those kids that they even get more skilled. And that discrepancy starts to happen. And with our kids and with girls in general, when that discrepancy of skill gets so far, kids, it's hard. They take a look around and think, boy, these kids are pretty good. I'm not that good. And I wish they would, still play, keep going and understand that you could still be a part of this. But that skill discrepancy is huge. Now, I do think also, kind of going back to what we talked about with teams and scheduling games and things like that, sometimes when you're trying to build a program, when I was at Preble, Mike Wittig and we were 0-21 the first year, so we were trying to build a program at the time. And then you're playing these top teams, and back then in the FR, the Fox River Valley Conference, you had all these teams who were, Green Bay Southwest that time was number one in the state back in the 90s. Then you had Green Bay West was really good. East was good. And Sheboygan North was, that. So you were playing these teams and you struggled and had to coach your tail off just to be in a game. And then to try to build confidence in kids to keep playing is very difficult in that if you're constantly losing. So one of the things that I think that would actually be helpful in a way, it's and I don't know the whole gist of that you would do this, it's the kind of the European soccer method with your where you have tiered groups and then you have to earn the right to get in and then you drop down if you didn't get that, but you're always playing like level teams. So a team like, I'll just say, I teach at Green Bay West hasn't had a girls team in 3-4 years because they can't compete. But if they were able to compete with some of the teams that were at that lower echelon, you could build some sense of, hey, this is fun. And you can have that sense of success at that level to try to keep kids playing or to even get kids to play. There are so many different reasons why we're losing kids to club soccer. We're losing them to club volleyball. We're losing club volleyball being the main. But I think we can try to change some of the systems to be able to help those teams that are struggling so they don't have to constantly have to fight the aspect of, hey, when you're losing, when you said some of those discrepancies in scores, that's hard to keep kids playing. I mean, that's really hard, and somehow we got to help that situation. And, the simple answer is get everybody more skilled, but that's, we're all trying to do that. But there's so many different things. And I like the aspect of, we were talking about it today. I think, the best way, as coaches, people always listen to us pontificate and all this and that, but it gets to a certain point where we have to interview the kids. Why are you playing? What do you like about playing? What don't you like about playing? Why are you choosing not to keep playing? Why are you choosing to play? Because that's really the true information that I would love to get. And if it's an outside source asking it, that if we could somehow get it in a systematic way to hear these thoughts from kids, at least then we could get it at that, like, boots on the ground. These are the kids that are actually, stating why they're not playing. And then maybe we can adjust things to help it out.
I've seen
Coach, do you have
some
Oh, I'm sorry.
studies.
Go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, I've seen some studies, and this is youth sports more so than high school. But the number one reason kids quit is they're not having fun anymore.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and
And that's hard to break down. Like, why are you not having fun? What are the reasons going into that? But that's the number one reason based on all the research and data that I've seen. I'm not having
yes,
fun anymore.
yeah, and and there's a lot of things that go into fun. With who you're with, who is leading that team, as a coach, but then also the game becomes much more fun the more skilled you are. And so that's the one disconnect. It's like, okay, it's fun. You have to make sure that kids are being valued and that they're able to play in a situation where it doesn't have to be perfect, where they are able to make mistakes and still learn, and it's a safe place for them to do it. And if you create that type of environment, that's when fun can be had. It's where kids feel pressured, where they feel like you have to be perfect, you can't make a mistake, or you're afraid to make a mistake in front of your peers. That's when it gets to be, especially as youth kids, that's where it gets to be, oh, I don't want to go today. And sometimes you have to push kids through that to get there to, be comfortable being uncomfortable. But those are huge things that a lot of youth coaches may not have the background to impart. And so fun is, because behind me, we want to be fun to play with. That is something that we stress every single day with our kids, with each other. But we also want to be a nightmare to play against. That's where the skill aspect comes in. And trying to find that happy medium. And then, you get at, we're a very athletic community. And, we have great soccer, we have great softball. There's so many different things that at some point kids choose to go the other way than just basketball. But we want kids to be able to enjoy their experience. And, but sometimes they like we struggle. Sometimes they don't allow us even to work with them once they get to high school because they've made a decision to go just one other sport. And that's where we get frustrated as a high school staff. It's like, come on, give us a chance. You're going to understand that, hey, this is kind of fun. You want to have fun, and it's okay. And you get to have a daily thing with your team, with your coaches, and different than youth.
Yeah, Coach, I have a question in regards to as someone coming from someone who has been primarily a boys coach his entire career, you as someone who has coached both boys and girls, a question that I kind of have is, do you think that the teenage girl is a little bit more understanding of where they're at compared to the teenage boy? And that has something going into, you talk about, understanding your levels, and there are levels to this, right? Do you think the teenage girl has a little bit more understanding of where they're at, maybe skill wise, than maybe the teenage boy has coming into high school?
Yeah, it's kind of, people always ask me the difference between coaching boys and girls, and I did it for a long time. It was, boys don't want to let themselves down, girls don't want to let their teammates down. Not that boys don't play for their teammates, they do, but in general, it's a lot what you're saying. The girls have a tendency, they know where they're at. They have a tendency to self-organize, and see, it's like, okay, these kids are better than I am. Do I want to gravitate to a different sport? And whereas a boy might just go, hey, I'm going to keep trying to play as long as I can. And regardless of, whether, if they're able to keep playing at a school or if there's cuts and stuff like that. There are differences, but kids are kids. They all want to compete. They all want to have fun, regardless, and they want to be treated in a way that they feel valued. And that is what we try to do every single day. We're by no means perfect, but we talk to our kids a ton. We have individual meetings every 2 weeks, and where you're at and how you're doing, what the team needs from you, and things like that. So trying to keep kids out and keep them valued is huge.
Yeah, Coach, I kind of want to harken back to a little bit earlier in our conversation. We were talking about sharing information, and I think, you are a great follow on Twitter. For those that don't, it is DL Fayed. Great follow. You've put out some of the stuff that you do in practices. You've put out clips. One thing that I really liked was the Chat GPT setting up the
Yeah.
scenarios and then your assistant. That was something that I thought was incredible.
It worked well too, by the way.
But there are some coaches, I would say that number is growing less. I think it's shrinking, that don't like to share, that keep things close to the chest, whether it's regards to how they go about their day with regards to scout, with regards to, drills, with regards to anything, all the way down to just, making stats available for the public. You know? So just my question would be is, where do you think is it just an old school approach of, hey, if you want it, we need to make it harder for you to find? Is it what's your thoughts on that?
I just always look at it as, especially now, and I'm an old school guy. I'm 55 years old, done this a long time, but I've always shared. Style of play has something to do with it. Since we're conceptual, not everything is a set play, and the worry of, they're going to know what we do. I don't care if you know what we do, because there should be some decision that we can make to counteract it. And so sharing in that aspect, is just, again, I get stuff out of it too, because it makes me go through each possession and really look at what we're doing. So, and that's where that intellectual curiosity really helps me. And I do it in that process of sharing it with other people. The other thing with stats and things like that, it's like, it's like, why wouldn't you want to share your stats to show what your kids are doing? Be transparent. That's what we want our kids to be able to see and fans to be able to see. And now, because it's such a beautiful thing with all the live streams, and people are able to look and watch. I always think about, okay, if my mom's watching, she wants to know which kids are which, why not share that? It is something to me that is like, it only helps. It helps support the game. It helps support the people who are playing the game, but also who are watching the game. So I'm always going to try to default to sharing that. There are just differences in people, where they feel like, I don't want to make it easier for other people. I'm working hard. They should be working hard too. That aspect. I mean, I think of that as an old football coach. It was like back in the day when you were in Travis, you probably remember this, back in the day when you couldn't even videotape games. You had to go and by hand. I would just go when I was at Lacrosse Central 30 some years ago, couldn't videotape because it was illegal so you had to do each play. It's like, well, why am I going to share this with somebody else when I did all the work for that? I think that mindset's gone because everything is streamed anyway. Anybody can watch what we do. Anybody, if they want to take the time to watch what we're doing, that's taking away time from them working on their own team. So it's like, that's why I don't mind sharing. It is something that I just have always done, and I always will do. And I know it gets to be frustrating sometimes when I'm looking for stats for other teams. When you look in some conferences, they just don't put anything in. It's like, okay, I guess I'll just look at my huddle stats that I can huddle assist all these games anyway. So it's like, okay, so I'll have 6 games of stats. It just seems like we sometimes make things too difficult for wrong reasons and for silly reasons, instead of actually looking at the positives of sharing and what that can do for your players and what it can do for people watching and what it can do for increased interest in our game.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've always been obviously being at WSN for 10 years now, bound working where, I want all the statistical information that I can. I'm a numbers guy. I like being able to, I really enjoy the idea of one space or spaces where like all that information is available, where, you can go in and you can see it. It harkens back to when being younger and you open up the state journal and you scored your first 2 varsity points on a game, and you want to see that in the box.
Absolutely. Score. Yes. Yeah. That's why we always still try to contact. For us, it's Post Crescent and then our local Times Villager. So always try to give them the box score or the scorebook pictures and PDF it, and so they have it, and they could then share it with what they want, but at least it's there.
Yeah, you guys got anything else just related to basketball?
I found it to be really interesting when you talked about everything that you do with your system, and conceptually, right? Everything is very decision-making process, right? And I think that that's where the game of basketball is going. Obviously, it's not like here's your system, you're going to run it, and the decisions are made for you every single time down the floor. Where now it's like you're put in a situation, you have to make the right decision, and sometimes the right decision is different in the same situation,
Absolutely.
depending upon personnel and on offense and defense. And I think that's a big part of what's drawn me to a lot of the things that you post out online and everything. Vinny and I, we have tons of conversations about some of the things that you do, because what we do at Hartford from the boys and the girls side, very similar in style, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And we learned. I was sitting there at the WBCA clinic, writing notes and seeing a bunch of things you were doing in transition, and I found a couple wrinkles that we can incorporate into ours, right? So I think that being able to share that information, and like the fact that when you get that information, everyone, we can change it too, right? Because we're going to make it we can change it to make it work for us, right? So like, oh man, I really love that, but we can't do it that way, but we could do it this way. Because of who our personnel is and the types of decisions that they make, right? So I think that the game of basketball has changed a lot in that retrospect, right? To the fact that it's no longer like, hey, run these set plays because you'll get a wide open look. It's like, no, we need to read the defense and make a decision and continue to do our things. I'm very much so just like you, when it's like, hey, I don't care if they know exactly what we're doing, or if we call out actions. It doesn't matter. We still have to make decisions out of those actions.
Absolutely, and that's what we want our kids, and we talk about being anti-fragile.
Mm-hmm.
So meaning, be able to get better because of the chaos of the game, not just to be able to persevere and get through it, but actually get better because of it. And again, how we run practice is like that, so it's, there's constant, and it's always funny, and I guarantee you guys have seen it. When kids are first placed into those decision-making situations, it's very hard for them, because a lot of times now we have some control over how our youth coaches do it. But if they're being told, you got to go from here to there, this is where you have to run to, and in this action, you're going to do this. When that doesn't happen, it can be like, oh my goodness, what do I do? We have kind of the other thing where it's like we have to make sure we limit a little bit your choices, at a certain point, chill, just stop moving, but then our young kids always struggle of what we can do because they feel like there's so many options. So, but then as they get better throughout the year and they understand, okay, I could just chill here before I fill, and having that sense of, okay, just wait, being slow is okay. Actually, slow is pro. It's actually a good thing, and then, and understanding that you see the growth, and that's where I really get, I love watching our kids see that. I mean, we have some great kids who, like, I'll use our kids who were gone, who have graduated now and playing in college. Kate McGinnis as a freshman and Reagan Krieger as a freshman, literally would just run around. I mean, they'd be running in circles. It's like, okay, did we through film and everything? No, just stop. But by the time they graduated last year, I mean, they were, they could run our offense and teach it, and getting to that point just through how many decisions that they had a chance to make, and being able to again be wrong. And like we say, the way we play, it's you really can't be wrong if you make space. You can't be wrong if you just chill for a little bit. But being able to feel like they could make mistakes in a safe setting is what allows them to keep growing.
Yeah. Coach, before we get into a little bit of rapid fire questions with you, I did want to ask. The basketball season is long. It's arduous. It can really, those months of February, late January into March, they can take a while. And something that I did a couple years ago, I asked coaches, how do you kind of decompress in the season? Do you find time? Whether it's watching a movie with your wife, with your kids, how do you get away from the game? And something that surprised me when I asked that was many coaches said they do not. They don't find time from November to March to decompress, to get away. It's a night after a practice, I'm going to go watch film. It's a night after a game, I'm going to go get stats. I don't have practice tonight, I'm going to go to a game in person. For you personally, do you find time in the season to just, get away from basketball, so to speak?
The nice part is I live in Kimberly and I teach in Green Bay. So there's a built-in 30-minute drive every day there and 30 minutes back. And we practice late here in Kimberly. Late for us is 5:30 every night. So, because then I don't have to feel like I have to be in two places at once. So those 30 minutes are my times where I will either listen to an audible book, not on basketball, or non-basketball podcasts. I have a ton of basketball podcasts that I listen to in the summer and in the build-up in the fall. But in season, I don't listen to any basketball podcasts. It's usually some other thing. A lot of science technology stuff. I'm a tech guy, so I listen to a lot of tech podcasts on my way. And it's anything to just get that little bit of separation, because then even that hour a day of not just thinking about basketball is a good thing for me, because it keeps it special. And when you do too much of it, then it gets to be, it gets to be a drag. And, that kind of goes with our earlier conversation where with youth kids, they play so much that it gets to be a drag. It's like sometimes I think we'd have more kids if everybody started in 7th grade, back like it was when 35 years ago, because then it's actually special. It's not like you've gone to the 8 state tournaments as a 4th grader, 5th grader. You actually have to get to a true state tournament, so where it's a special thing, and they're not making rings in 5th grade because they beat 4 other teams and won a state tournament, and that's hard to compete against then when you actually have to go try to do it. But yeah, I try to separate. I also try to make sure something that and my wife will say I'm working, a work in progress of being present when I'm home, and then I'm not focused on it. Some days are better than others. The nice part is I get my basketball. I don't sleep much, so I'm up early, so I get my basketball stuff done in the morning, and then I'm good. Then we have practice, and once practice is done, I come home. It's done. Now I might be thinking about, okay, what do we need to do next? But it's not like I'm sitting at the computer and drawing up stuff and breaking down film. I do that in the morning and try to make sure I compartmentalize, and then give myself a couple other things. I'll listen to some golf stuff. Occasionally I'll go to X Golf just to get the clubs back out and pound some balls and to give myself something other than hoops, because I am a hoops junkie. I could do it all day long. So it is a conscious decision to have those other interests that I have, because I'm multifaceted. I don't want that to just stop being because I'm in the basketball season.
No, yeah, I think that's great. Coaching, working in the media space from November to March for myself personally, it's very basketball driven. So I like to do a puzzle. I like to,
Wordle every morning.
Turn the brain off for just dumb media sometimes, whether it's a movie, whether it's a TV show, and just being able to disconnect in that way.
Well, and Chris has the other thing, because I bet you have young kids.
I do.
My kids are old now. Yeah, my kids are old now. They're gone. So it's like I have time for those other things, whereas you're being dad.
I also get to be a 4th grade girls basketball coach as well. I'm helping. I'm an assistant coach for that. I'm not. I'm not quite good enough to be the head coach for the 4th grade team, but I'm helping out.
Yeah, I remember those days. You'd go to youth practice or varsity practice, and then go back to the youth practice. And
Yep.
yeah, absolutely.
That'll be my Monday.
That is, yes, absolutely. There are times I miss that, and then there are times I don't miss that.
Coach, let's hop into some rapid fire questions. We're gonna try and get these with almost every coach, anybody that we interview. We're just gonna ramble through 8-9 questions. Give me some quick answers. First thing that comes to your head. Let's just shoot from the hip here.
Sure.
All right. First one. What's the favorite gym you get to coach in outside of your home gym?
I love going to Hortonville. It's always loud. We usually would have double headers. This year we don't, which is too bad. But it's always packed, and I swear they torque the heat up there to about 85, 90. It's really hot. That's a fun gym to coach.
The most impactful point of data. So the most impactful data points that you track while in game.
Our points per possession, and our effective field goal percentage. Those are the two tops that our goal is always to be over 1.0. Last year for a season, we were like 1.09. This year right now, we're hovering right at 1.0. And then effective field goal percentage over the years that I've coached, there's almost a direct relation to wins-loss. When we have a solid effective field goal percentage and we win that battle, we're going to win. And so that's the two that we really track.
Favorite thing to draw up in a game?
See, this is interesting. I don't draw up much because we're conceptual. Usually we can make up sets just through because I name everything. So if we want to action, it's like, hey, Ava, let's empty cut. Let's go for a get, but you keep Hales hold the corner. So since we've talked about those things so often, now I will draw it, but to be honest, the kids have no clue what I'm drawing. Like today at practice, we had had a big whiteboard, and we just called it a whiteboard day. Just our basic actions, and then kids take turns, and it's a group project, and they have to go up and do it. And it's funny to watch what they draw. The first and what they use. Is there some common language? What do they do for a pass? What do they do to try to draw a dribble? And it's so what we think as coaches that they're seeing, they're not seeing. That's why I don't use a clipboard very often. I have it. If we want, mainly though, it's basically started for space. Like, okay, we're getting to here, but then we'll talk the actions.
Biggest non-negotiable?
Be on time. There's always things that happen, and then just communicate. I'm not an ogre. If your car broke down or something happened, just talk to me. But in general, our kids are always on time. And just because I'm always early, and early for me sometimes is, 15 minutes isn't early. I'm usually a half an hour early. I don't expect that out of other people. Just be there. If we're watching film at 5, make sure you're there before 5.
Biggest inspiration you've had in the coaching field over your past 30-some years?
Ooh, inspiration. Coaching third grade girls basketball. Honestly, I was taught jump stop, vicious pivot, all of that. Forrest Larson, bam, worked his camps and did all of that, and that's how I was taught. I went completely opposite of that. I went stride stop, pivot away from the defense, learn how to play with the game behind you, and then space. And that was the biggest inspiration, and it was literally having to coach third grade girls because if you jump stop, vicious pivot, it was a jump ball. Or they'd rip the ball away. So it was like, okay, I got to figure out a way to reteach this. And then it was, people have a tendency to try to get confirmation of their affirmations. So I was pretty affirmed on what we were doing, but I had to search out because I was trying to fight battles with that because it was so different at the time. This is back in 2010, with stride stops and everything. And then I found a guy out of Canada, Chris Oliver, who was doing exactly that and was using the same language, and created a connection with him. And he was starting basketball immersion. I think I was his 5th paying customer. Now he works for the NBA and has blown up through the years. But it was all based on a stride stop and a pivot back. And that was the biggest inspiration, and that really changed how I coached everything. And it's grown from there.
Highest IQ player you've coached or coached against?
Oh gosh, last year, I'm going to say last year's team. Toughest group of kids, boys or girls I've ever coached. Just so critical moment toughness, making decisions that would be impactful. Sometimes not always the right decision, but then would be able to have such great turnaround toughness to get back to what was expected. Just being able to, we watch film. Here's an example of their basketball IQ. Last year's group, we could literally watch a half an hour of us, and they would take what we've talked about, okay, spatial, drive direction, anything we were doing. And in that next practice, as we walked from the classroom across the hall to the gym, they were able to transfer it. And having that transfer allowed us, and we were so deep that each practice was a battle. So it allowed us to get so much better. And their basketball IQ just shot up the charts. So I would say that whole team.
Favorite song you hear from, whether it's your pep band or you walk into a gym and the pep band's playing? What's your favorite song to hear?
Oh, gosh, I love the pep band. Kids don't like it. It's too loud. It's like, come on, man, this is basketball. You got to have the pep band. Gosh, I don't know if I know the names. It's just like, but let's see, one that Kimberly always plays. Let's see. What is it?
Final Countdown, Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah.
Those are some.
Yeah, those are always good.
Ones.
What's the Jack White song? I can't think of it. Dun, 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 dun. I can't remember.
Seven Nation Army.
That's it. Thank you.
That's a good one too.
That is a good one. I like that.
When you're out at a game, whether it's your scouting or you're out at a tournament, go to concession item for you.
Popcorn, absolutely. Yeah, in the FEA, there's some really good popcorn. Appleton West has the best popcorn.
Shout out Appleton West.
Absolutely, the best popcorn. Kimberly's is really good, but back in the day, Fond du Lac used to have the best because they'd give you this huge bag. It would be like, and it was $1. Every place else it would be $2, and it was like triple the size. So they always got, but they don't do that anymore. So, but Appleton West each year, best popcorn.
Two final ones in our rapid fire here. How many KT trips? How many quick trips have you made in the last 3 weeks?
Because I drink too much coffee, so I always have to have coffee before practice. And if I can't get home, I'll stop at Quick Trip. So I end up stopping in the one in Little Chute on the way to Kimberly High School, so to get a cup of coffee. So pretty much 3 times a week, probably.
We're gonna round up to 10. We'll get 10.
Yeah, it probably would be.
Last thing, and this can either be after your end of your banquet, after your end of your meetings. Favorite thing to do kind of after the week of your season, after the season concludes, what's your favorite thing to do?
It's funny. We reflect in this last year because we talk about outcome goal at the beginning of the year and really don't talk about it again because not every team's going to reach their outcome. I mean, very few do. But each year I do go through my reflective process. And part of that process is looking at, I give myself, like even last year, I gave myself 2 days to just, through my emotion, through my mind, looking back at all of the things that occurred. Positive, negative, in between, and how we responded to them. But then as soon as that first week is over, I dive in and I go through every single possession. I go through and say, okay, the nice part is when you can click on each possession and there it is. And that's just a quick walkthrough where I watch it. I start offense and then I go to defense later. And to be honest, I usually do like the better games that we had during the year. But that's the process, and then it starts. And then in the summer, I dive into each possession, and then I'll draw stuff up, and that's the stuff that I have a tendency to share. And then you start to see patterns because that's what I want to see is like, okay, how do we actually score? what actions are we doing that are creating big advantage shots? But that all starts with, though, is a emotional look at a reflective process, goal, plan, act, reflect. So that reflection is definitely a huge part of it. If you can't look back on what you're doing and see the positives and see the enjoyment that you had over that time frame, then it's probably a good part of your thought process of, am I ready to be done with this? And each year I just look at that, and it's always a positive, to see the growth.
Well, we've kept you here a lot longer than what we wanted. Talking hoops is fun. Basketball is fun. I do have one last question for you. Culture is kind of a big word that's thrown around when it comes to athletic programs. Building a culture, creating or continuing that culture, nurturing that culture, and a lot of what culture is, in my opinion, it's about relationships.
Yes,
it's very. So my question for you is, what is one thing that you do specifically that is unique, that you build better relationships, whether it's player to player, player to coach, within your community, or even within at the youth level? What is one thing that's unique for Kimberly girls basketball? Sorry.
one of our things in our statement is connection precedes commitment. And so we really stress and focus on creating connections with everybody in our youth group, and all the way through, last week we had our Meet the Makers, where all of our youth kids come in and they get to do all of the stuff with the varsity kids. And our varsity and JV kids love it even more than the youth kids. But building that connection. When I got hired, when Mr. McGinnis hired, I'm in the interview process, and he asked what it was going to be different, because I was a part of the program. I said, we've had such a great program, but I want to take it to the next. And it all starts with creating that connection with our community and those youth kids. And I believe we have. It's always a work in progress, because we're never there. As soon as you think that you have it all done, well, then you're going to let things slide. So when we're building connection, I always tell the kids, I'm never going to lie to them. I'm transparent, and we will talk and treat you as someone who is valued, regardless of how much you play. If you're a part of us, we are going to do the best that we can to make sure that you understand your value to this team. And we do throughout the year we have, like I say, every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2-minute sessions of just individual. Here's what you're doing well. Here's what you need to work on, and here's what the team you need to do to help this team. So embrace this role right now. And that talking is two-way, and part of that is, like I tell the girls, you can tell me, hey, old man, you don't know what you're doing. It's like, okay, but there's a connection there that we've earned that trust and do that. The other day in a game, Ava Van Vonderen, she told me to chill. It was like perfect, because we have that connection. And you have to be willing as the coach to be able to be a part of what you are trying to teach, and allow the students and our players to be able to, use the things that we're saying to help us as coaches. So that is one thing I know coaches talk to their players. Again, I'm not saying we do it any better. I'm just saying it's a focus to have connection precedes commitment. If I want kids to commit to what we're doing, we better have a connection. If I just walk in and say, you're going to do this, 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 it's like, who the heck are you? Why should I listen to you? Well, it's not going to end well. So we have to build that connection first.
Trav and Chris, anything else for Coach before we let him get on with this Sunday night here?
No, I really appreciate you coming on, Coach. As I said, we'll connect again, hopefully on that larger girls' participation discussion. Wanted to keep that on its own thing because of the importance of it, but certainly appreciate you taking a lot of time to join us tonight and give some great perspective.
Well, thank you. Anytime. I could sit there. I could probably talk too much, but that's okay.
Yeah, appreciate it, Coach. Thanks a lot for coming on. I love your stuff. I love following you and seeing all the things that you're doing. like I said,
Thank
it's a
you.
lot of things for me to bounce off my program as well. So it's really, really awesome to see.
Thank you.
Yeah, Coach. Now that you're our first and inaugural interview,
Yeah.
that means the second time you're going to be the first repeat one. So
All right. Look forward to it.
We look forward to having you on again. Thank you again for taking the time out of your Sunday night to join us, and good luck the rest of the season. It's going to be fun to follow along. Yeah, thanks again, Coach.
Thank you. We'll do our best. We'll see if we can make some shots.
We went from me, Chris, and Trav to me, Chris, Trav, and Dave, and now it's back to me, Chris, and Trav after our interview that you just saw with reigning, defending Division I state champion coach Dave Lepisto of Kimberly. Guys, I mean, we said we wanted to keep it at a half hour. It ended up being, I think, around 55 minutes. It was a long time, but I could just sit there and listen to him talk about basketball.
Yeah, he has a lot of great speaking points. Like I said during the interview, I got to be a spectator while he spoke at the WBCA clinic, and everyone that was surrounded his court was very into it. He just has a lot of great things that he's doing over in Kimberly, and I think everybody wants to get a piece of it, and learn from him and be able to incorporate it into what they do on a daily basis.
And incredibly impressive for what he's willing to share.
Yep.
Presenting at the clinic, the stuff that he posts on social, the connections that he makes, and the things that he's willing to share with the community in general, I think are huge. And are, we talked about it, and we'll talk about more, the girls basketball participation issues and things like that. You need advocates. And Dave Lepisto at Kimberly is one of the biggest advocates for basketball and girls basketball in the state of Wisconsin. It's great to see, and it was great to have him on the podcast.
Yeah, agreed. He's someone that we are looking forward to just having on again. I think we just scratched the surface of what we could talk about, for one. And then for two, that bigger, all-encompassing girls basketball participation conversation that we'll have. Things we saw a little bit this week online. Chris, you had texted me this. I had seen it on the internet just the week before. There was a basketball game played at three-quarters court this week.
Yeah, that was pretty insane to see. I was scrolling a little bit and I saw that, and watching the players have to take it back around a cone and then come back at the defense was pretty. It was pretty crazy sight to see. And in the background as they're dribbling back up the court, you can see the shattered backboard there, and man, people want dunking to be allowed in warm-ups, and maybe that would be an argument not to allow it. I don't know, because I think that in a lot of states it is allowed at the high school level. I don't really care either way; doesn't bother me. But that was quite the scene to see. Could you imagine if you're a team who really gets up and down the floor? Now you're playing a full just half-court basketball game, which would drive me nuts.
Three-quarter court.
Okay.
Well,
all right. There's no transition. I can tell you your transition numbers are looking a little different than that night.
I don't know for sure where that was, but it looks like Nebraska. Yeah. I am very certain that is not how that situation should have been handled.
No, I don't think so either.
Rules, that is not. No, that is not how that should have gone. It should have been everybody go home, we'll fix it, and we'll reschedule it. There's no allowance for something like that in the rules of basketball and NFHS. Nope. That was, I don't know if it was unsanctioned, if it was a freshman or JV game that they didn't care. I don't think you can even count that as a varsity game because it was not played under the proper rules.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way you could count that game overall, right? I mean, I've seen it and heard it before where, like, in warm-up, something like that happens, or in the middle of a game that happens, and they have a second gym, and they're like, all right, we're moving over to the other gym and we're going to finish the game over there. Like, that makes complete sense, right? But you cannot count. I mean, you can't count any of that stuff. It doesn't make any sense. It's not basketball, not the way in which it's supposed to look anyway, right?
I wonder what they said to the defenses on when that they could pick up the opposing offensive player? Is it right when he rounds the cone? Can you then press, get the 10-second violation?
I don't know. I would have been so frustrated. There's no shot that I would have agreed to it. Yeah, let's do it like this. As soon as they would have been like, hey, we can bring a cone out and set it down at the opposite elbow, and you just have to go. I'd have been like, I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm leaving.
Chris, you mentioned coaching fourth grade girls basketball. I don't know if you've got there yet, but I've coached youth basketball and coached parochial school basketball, small town, small school parochial school basketball for a number of years. And there are some gyms that we played in that certainly are not regulation, where either there's no 3-point line. We played in those. The 3-point line cuts off at like the free throw line extended. There was a court that we played on in again, parochial school, like 7th, 8th grade basketball, where it was almost like this, where they had 2 different division lines. And if you were going one direction, the division line was like farther back. And then if you were going the other direction, the division line was farther back. That would be an interesting segment in itself sometime. Those wild, crazy gym stories of markings that are off or cracker box gyms or whatever else. That would be an interesting segment to do sometime.
Yeah, it's like you've seen the AAU bingo stuff, right? Where you could almost make a bingo card with stuff like that you've seen in gyms. I mean, I can remember growing up, like I played in plenty of gyms because I went to a small parochial school and the gyms were tiny. And I remember a specific gym where we had to bring it across half court, but then as soon as you brought it across half court, you could go all the way back to the opposing free throw line because the space was so small. And then the 3-point lines being cut off all in the same gym. So yeah, it's wild. I just my daughter has been blessed to play on full courts so far.
This basketball shattering last year. I can't remember who they were playing. Clintonville had a situation where Sam Wegener went up, dunked it. It was very early in the game. Just destroyed the backboard, shattered it. Game was rightfully postponed, played at a different date. I can't remember if it was Clintonville's gym or an opposing team's gym, but yeah, just a wild story that came across the internet this week. One thing that I put out there, and I was thinking of it while watching, I don't know what I was watching, but there was a wrestler that came onto the basketball court and dribbled 3 dribbles to the 3-point line and shot. And I said, basketball is one of those sports where it's like the second that someone steps on the court and grabs the ball, it is one of those sports where I think it's the most obvious that you're like, yeah, that's a wrestler. Or, yep, that's someone that's never seen what basketball is before. Got a lot of feedback that apparently that's not all of it. I get it, but I can kick a soccer ball. I can throw a football and make it looks meh competent. But the second that
Travis might disagree with you. I'm not sure just by his facial expressions.
The second that lightweight wrestler comes out there, takes those 3 very stiff dribbles and just straight arms it, it's like, I know that's not a basketball player.
This is coming from the guy that did not play baseball growing up ever, did not play football growing up.
False. 4th grade T-ball.
Flag football in 4th grade doesn't count. T-ball in 3rd grade doesn't count.
3rd grade T-ball champion. 4th grade, sorry, I didn't get the ball in flag football. My brother, the coach, not this brother, other brother, decided to give the ball to Brady Ewing every time. I don't know what he saw in the guy. He only went on to play in the NFL. But when you don't get the ball in 4th grade, come on.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, that was it, not the physicality part.
Super physical. Super.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it goes to each sport and like the skill set, right? I guess there are specific skill sets for every sport, and if you're a person who is very privy to that said sport, and you see someone who has no idea what they're doing walk onto that court or field, you know right away. I think that might be the best point to get at that, right? Is that just, I guess, stay in your lane and respect the sports in which you play or coach, and continue to go from there.
Good point. A last talking point before we get to kind of our look ahead, our preview of the week. We at Richmond Center, we got new jerseys this year. Super awesome, great. Coach Paul's our varsity coach, asked for numbers and sizes from some of the prospective varsity kids going into the year. Did some of the jersey ordering around that, and we get to jersey handout. A kid that had wanted this number at this size decides to switch his number. So now we're stuck with like, you order it and you have, I think it was like a number 4, but it's an XL jersey. So you got a 4 that's an XL, you got a 42 that's a medium. And I know we're in the world of where jersey numbers don't really matter anymore, and maybe it's a little conventional of me to think, but what are you guys as Chris, when you do new jersey orders, how do you approach it with the team? What sort of feedback do you get? What do you take? What do you use?
Well, first, I've been at Hartford now. This is my 5th year, and we have the luxury of we get new uniforms every 3 years. So I've done it twice now, and I don't give the guys any, what I want to say, power or choice when it comes to like numbers and sizes and stuff like that, because I think that's more of a logistical side of things, and I like to do that stuff on my own. But when it comes to the style and those types of things, and what the logos look like, or what the lettering and the numbering looks like, like, hey, I got these like 5 different things mocked up. What do you guys think? Why don't you pick from these 3 or 4 or 5 different things and give me some feedback, and then I kind of go from there. I think if you will allow them to design those things or pick out numbers and sizes, it's just, I think it becomes a headache. I do like to give some ownership, and like, I'll have some things mocked up, be like, hey guys, what do you think of these things? Give me your honest feedback. I'll talk to maybe all the returners, see what they think, and then ultimately like make an educated decision from there.
Trav, I saw the jerseys that you played with in high school. Heck, I had to wear some of them as a freshman and sophomore at the lower levels. So obviously back then, 1, you guys probably had no say, and 2, your coaches just might not have had a say. It was just hey, we're going to get this. This is what's in stock. Let's go.
Yeah, I don't know what that process was like back then, to be honest with you. I mean, we had, I'll date myself, but we had the old like Dazzle type jerseys that were shiny and not breathable very well.
See through.
I don't know.
The shorts were like diapers. That's what I remember. Remember as a freshman wearing shorts that were like, they felt like diapers on me, and they were, it was terrible.
So when I was coming up my freshman and sophomore year, it was, we had hand-me-downs and they were short shorts, but you got to remember, I was like Fab 5 era, that time frame of long baggy shorts. I mean, not like what's the Ford guy, that TJ Ford, not like TJ Ford shorts, but
oh my gosh,
it was the start of the long shorts era when I was coming through. That doesn't mean that we got long shorts when we got there, but yeah, it's interesting how that's changed, and I don't know, that'd be an interesting discussion or feedback point at some point of how often do you get new jerseys at your school?
Yeah.
You said you get new jerseys every 3 years, Chris, and I don't, at smaller schools or elsewhere, or rural schools, whatever, I don't think it's every 3 years. It might be longer. It's always interesting to, you mentioned not ordering for kids. Is it a big thing in basketball as much to, buy your own jersey or keep your own jersey? On the football side of things, where I coach in football at the high school level, kids have the option to buy their jersey every year. When sophomores come into the program, they can pick their number and put their number on it if they want, or they can just have a generic number, and in case they want to change it later on. And numbers are a bigger deal in football, it seems like, maybe than basketball, perhaps, where every year everybody wants the lowest number, right? Everybody wants to be 0 or 1 or 2 or 3 as the skill guys. So it's interesting. That would be interesting as well. Like, how many people buy their jerseys, and if you let kids buy, do you buy the replacement for the next year? Because as you said, if you're replacing every few years, if you let kids buy their jersey and you don't have replacements, all of a sudden you're going to be out. So that whole process is fascinating to me. Just, how you go about picking and designing, and how much input do you let the kids have? How much do they cost compared to other manufacturers? All of that is really interesting to me. And there's some schools that have 3 sets of jerseys too, which is, again, coming from when I grew up, it was like we were lucky to have 2, and we were still, even at that time, away jerseys is an odd number, and even jerseys home jerseys are an even number to some extent. I don't see that really anymore, but yeah, that whole thing always is interesting to me.
Yeah, I have 2 examples of things that you just kind of brought up, right? So I actually 2 years ago had a player's parents ask me if they could purchase their uniform after the season, and I was like, oh boy, I don't know. Like with basketball uniforms, it's not as easy to kind of replace them as it is for football, because it's kind of been a running tradition in football, like you said, Travis. And so I said, well, maybe in like 6 years you could purchase it for probably a lot cheaper too. And she's like, well, that's noted. I'll contact you in about 6 years then. And I said, yeah, that's fine. Be great. Whatever, and then, just with the number of jerseys, this last time around, we were able to get a 3rd jersey. So now we have white and we have black and we have orange. And our orange is like our alternate type jersey. And it's a different design than the white and the black. And that's just credit to, for us, it was more of an incentive for our guys when it came to fundraising. I got to tell you, like, our guys in my program do a fantastic job with it. And if we raise the money for the program, well, we're going to do whatever we can to spend that money on the kids. And as quickly as we can too, right? Like, I don't want it to be like, oh, okay, well, you guys raised this much money. Well, 4 years from now, we're going to spend it on kids that weren't even part of the program, right? So I think that's a big thing for us, is making sure that we're spending money on the kids that raised it.
I think that's a whole bigger discussion that we could have
for
at
sure.
some point in the future, is just fundraising,
Yeah.
not just at the basketball level, but just club or
So
club,
that was the biggest reason why we bought
level.
a third uniform, is because the kids earned it.
Yeah, I think with that, let's hop into our preview. We're going into week 2 of basketball, week 3 for girls basketball as far as game schedule wise, and there's a lot of good stuff on the schedule on both sides. We're coming off a week where, again, we had a lot of good games, a lot of contests canceled on that Saturday. So, Chris, I'm going to hop through just some of the coaching debuts that we got. You can hop right into, right after that, some of the marquee matchups in the big medium schools. So Brown Deer Dominican played Tuesday. Coach Daryl Longley is making his debut at Brown Deer. Nick Ford, who was at Fond du Lac a year ago, had a really good team, really well. He's now at Dominican, and again, both of those teams are pretty loaded this year. Josh Dilling, he's at Fondy, making his debut against Wanakee on Tuesday. Ryan Bowers steps in for longtime coach Mike Shallow. Did I say that correctly? If I didn't, oh boy. At Kakana, they play Thursday against Appleton West. Camp Cerrone making debut at Kimberly, another FVA new school, and they play Friday against Oshkosh West. And then one of the, like Coach Shallow from Kakana, one of the longer reigning coaches, tenured coaches, was Dan Burrison at Mineral Point. He stepped down after this past year. Brett McGraw, who was a longtime assistant, he'll step in. He's got a big first game against Potosi Cassville later this week.
Yeah, some top games this next week. You have a fellow North Shore conference opponent of ours is Whitefish Bay, and they have Arrowhead and Nicolay. That's pretty great way to start your season. For the most part, Bay's really talented. They're gonna have some really nice players, and Colin Julian's one of them, definitely, who does a great job for them. Guy can shoot the lights out, and he's a premier defender in our league. And Nicolay obviously is super athletic, and Arrowhead's Arrowhead. Every year they put in a consistent lineup in every single year. So Arrowhead also has CMH, which that's going to be another fantastic game, and Nicolay has MAS on Saturday. So right there, some crazy matchups to start the season, which is fantastic. Yeah. You go a little bit north, you got Notre Dame versus Seymour. which could both be a very good one. I know Seymour is looking to have a big time year. They kind of are set up for a lot of success this year. Then you get Racine Case has Franklin and Racine Lutheran. Waukesha West versus Oak Creek. That's, in the kind of like their first game in the Classic 8, where all of a sudden, you got a really nice matchup there. We play Waukesha West later in the year as well, and so I'll be interested to see what those guys look like. They didn't lose a whole lot from a year ago, and Oak Creek's really talented. Madison Memorial versus Verona, that's always a big one in their conference. West Dallas Central versus Juneau. Juneau's under a new head coach in Torrey Johnson, who is the father of Dooney Johnson. I think people probably have heard that name before. Super talented Gonzaga commit. So I think that's going to be a monster game as well. A lot of athleticism on the floor in that one. Lacrosse Central, Todd Ferget's got Marshfield and GET coming up versus Holman on the west side of the state this week. So there's some fantastic matchups all over the state. Whether you live in the northern part, the central, or the southern part of the state, you're going to be able to kind of look at the schedule and find some great games.
Yeah, some of the smaller school matchups that we got. Bonduelle, who was the D4 runner-up last year, they got St. Mary Catholic, and then they go right into it with Iola Scandinavia. Those two teams are going to be the teams to fight it out in the conference. Iola was young last year. Coors Loken, Alex Robbins, both are juniors this year. Just two mammoth athletes on the front line. Well, Bonduelle's got, Ryan Westrick, Carter Maish, Quinn Wesenberg, really good team. Iola's also got Stratford on their schedule, another really good team out of the Merriwood.
Colton, do you know if Iola's got some of their guys back? They had some injuries in football. Coors Loken missed over half, I think, or almost all of the football season. I don't know where some of those guys are returning to basketball at this point.
I think Coors he might not be here at the beginning. He might be more of a post-Christmas return, I think is what he had said in a tweet. So maybe those matchups aren't as good, but still that Robbins kid, he's already got D1 offers. He's a monster. Kind of a mid-school Xavier Moseny. Both Xavier had a tough loss earlier in the week. Moseny had a pretty grinded-out win. Both two teams were ranked in our D3 preview.
That should be a good one.
Yeah, Marathon has both Regis and Rib Lake. Again, those are all teams that either were ranked or mentioned in our preseason rankings. Oakfield and Lords, potential contenders in the Trailways East. That's Lords had a pretty good win. Was going to play another game on Saturday, didn't get to it. In the Trailways West or Trailways South, also Abundant Life and Parkview. Those two teams are going to be battling it out. They're going to have an early season matchup. And then my buddy TJ Zweffel at Marshall, he's got Lakeside Lutheran in a capital crossover. I don't think those count towards standings, but that's a really good D4 matchup. And D3, I guess. Trav, what do we got in girls?
A lot of the action, the best games are happening on Tuesday of this week. Excuse me, a busy night in girls basketball on Tuesday. Friday's a busy night as well. Those are the two biggest nights. But on Tuesday, we get a great one. We mentioned Oostburg earlier and how they'll go out and play anybody and everybody. They have a Whitefish Bay, a road game at Whitefish Bay on Tuesday. Whitefish Bay is outstanding. One of the best teams in Division II. Oostburg is the top-ranked team in the Bound Wisconsin Division III media poll. So that's going to be a great one in that area. We also talked about Tosa East and their head coach, Mary Merg, got another tough one. They played a really good schedule already, and they welcome in Elkhorn on Tuesday night. Tosa East, very impressive for a lot of different reasons. A lot of really good players coming back, but they have 4 players averaging double figures in so far in the early going here. Micaiah Litza, 23.5 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists a game. That's tough to do anywhere, anyhow, with that kind of production out of some really talented players. Again, some good players coming back. Small school games on Tuesday that are really interesting. Marathon at Assumption. That's a really key Merriwood South game. That Merriwood South Conference, just incredible. 4 teams last year with at least 19 wins, including both of those teams. Assumption, of course, would go on to win 29 games as the state champion. So that's a good test for both teams right out of the gate in the conference schedule. There's no let-ups. That is a league in the Marywood that does play crossovers, but those two teams are among the best of the best. And then a game I really love down in the southwest part of the state, the co-op battle between Argyle-Pecatonica and Albany-Monticello. First of 2 games this year. They split last year. Argyle won both the regular season games. Argyle-Pecatonica won both regular season games in 2023-24. But that year, Albany won in the state tournament en route to a state title. They met up in the semifinals that year. And just 2 great programs in Southwest Wisconsin. Former Blackhawk star and UW Green Bay star Jen Wellnitz is the head coach at Argyle-Pecatonica. And then Albany-Monticello has really become an elite program under Derek Dasher. So great game there. And we talked about Tosa East and their scoring, their prolific scoring. How about Argyle-Pecatonica? They had 3 20-point scores in their opening win against River Valley. So incredibly impressive for what they've been able to do. They have 2 all-state players coming back, but their top 3 scorers are actually back from last year and all really poured it in that first game over River Valley. So those are some of the ones that stand out again on Tuesday night. Some good games the rest of the week, but I think the biggest headlining games are Tuesday in girls basketball this week.
You talk about those 6 River teams in the girls side, and I don't know how many years it's been, but between Argyle Peck, Albany Monticello, you go back to Barneveld, Blackhawk, the amount of teams that have been to state that have come out of that conference on the girls side has just been astounding over the last 20 some odd years.
Yeah. And, obviously Barneveld was there a lot under Jim Myers, and he's back and has them as one of the best teams in the state, but outstanding coaches down in that area. And they've, like you said, they've just been year in and year out. Somebody from that 6 Rivers Conference is a state title contender or state tournament contender. Again, we saw both those 2 teams, Argyle-Pecatonica and Albany-Monticello, meet up at the state tournament. In pretty good basketball in boys as well. We saw Barneveld and Shullsburg play at the state tournament a while back as well. So really outstanding basketball down there in the 6 Rivers. And it's been interesting as with anything on the girls' side, seeing some of those teams co-op has really kind of reinvigorated them. Argyle-Pecatonica, when they were separate programs, were not exactly successful. At least recently. Pecatonica has a long history in girls basketball of being really good, but I can't remember exactly what it was. The year before they co-opted, one of them was had 1 or 2 wins. The other one, was not anything to write home about, but they came together, and Jen Wellnitz came in there, and her younger sister Brooke, came into that program and really has turned things around. It's really, really cool to see.
Yeah. That's our preview. That's what we got coming up this week. Coach, what do you got? You got game 1 coming.
Yeah, we do. We open up at home on Tuesday night against West Bend West. They're coming off a year where they won 15 games and had a star player in Carson Bauer. The guy could just do everything on the floor, and to not have to go up against him anymore is not a bad thing for me. Ryan does such a great job over there at West Bend West, and I know that they're going to be prepared for anybody that they play. This season, this is a weird non-conference game for us. Yeah. That's normally a conference game, considering that they now move to the Glacier Hills, and they're going to be competitive in that league because, like I said, Ryan does a great job at West, and him and I had an opportunity to meet over the summer and talk about some things that we do on both sides of the ball and pick each other's brain a little bit. Kind of like how, Coach Lepisto was talking about. It's just share things, get to know each other, how can you bounce things off one another? And that's where Ryan and I have gotten to that point in our relationship as fellow coaches. So I'm excited to see what they do in the new conference, but obviously I'd love to see us come out on top on Tuesday night.
Yeah. Trav, little nephew Brock, freshman, he's got his first game coming up this week.
Yeah, we got a little bit of a late start compared to a lot of people here in Reedsburg. Our first game, varsity or otherwise, is not until Friday. That was regularly scheduled. It was not pushed back because of the run to state in football. So open right away with Mount Horeb on Friday on the road. A tough way to start the season, especially with a really young team that we're going to have on the varsity level in Reedsburg. Only 2 seniors, really young group overall, fairly inexperienced group, at least in depth. And you go play one of the best Division II teams in the state with one of the top scorers in the state. Josh Manchester is the leading returning scorer in the state from last season, over 31 points a game. So be a challenge to start for sure. My son Brock is a freshman. He'll play on the freshman squad, and looking forward to getting to see him and then take in some really good varsity action on Friday night.
Yeah, my Hornets, we got Viroqua on Tuesday, and that is it for the week. Unfortunately, my JV crew, we don't have a game. In fact, we don't have a game until the 12th. We have 2 games before Christmas at my level. We have 1 game at our 3rd level before Christmas. Our kids come January are just going to be pent up, ready to go. So get a lot of prep time, which is great, as a coach, but in the same breath, you want to get your boys out there and really have them challenge it. We got a really nice win in game 1 with my group, a 30-point win. We got to play everybody. Those are always fun, especially this year when at my level I've got 14 kids that I get to suit up. So pretty cool.
That'll be something that we should touch on at some point, because it is December 1st tomorrow, and there's a lot of people that wouldn't mind seeing a December 1st start date, at least for games in basketball. So maybe we can talk about that sometime too.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's something I think we had a talking point last week we didn't really get to, but yeah, that should the basketball season start after. I know I've seen it online. Should the basketball season start after Thanksgiving? That does it for episode 1, 2. I don't know, count a few. Guys, it was a lot of fun. Thanks to Coach Lepisto. The interview was awesome. Our segments were a little short this week just because of how much we got out of that interview with Coach Lepisto. You'll hear from us next Monday on your airwaves. But until then, get out to a game. Go to your home team's game on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, on a Thursday, whenever you play games. If you can't, all the games are going to be streamed. All those links are going to be on boundwisconsin.com. Promise you that. We're going to have almost 100% coverage when it comes to streaming links this year. We'll have content. Trav, tell them some content we got coming out this week for boys and girls basketball.
Yeah, this will be the debut once with boys and girls going now. We'll have our basketball player of the week and basketball team of the week that you can vote on boundwisconsin.com. 5 nominees for player amongst the boys and girls, and then 5 teams amongst boys and girls as well. There will be 3 of one and 2 of the other each week. So you can vote on that, looking back at the top performances from the week before. Going to start the girls basketball prep props, looking at the top individual performances from the previous week in points, assists, and rebounds. Again, all based on information entered into Bound Wisconsin. You can check out the media poll coming out tomorrow on Monday as well. So Monday's going to be a loaded content day at Bound Wisconsin. You're going to want to make sure you check it out. And then, as you said, going forward the rest of the week, all kinds of action, 300 plus games on Tuesday, 300 games on Friday around the state between boys and girls. So you're going to want to make it your daily destination at boundwisconsin.com.
Chris, good luck with game 1.
You.
Enjoy it. Get after it. For the rest of you, we'll see you. We haven't figured out our farewell yet. So
knock it down.
Knock it down. That's it. Thanks, guys, for listening.